Sometimes I can't believe that it's 2020 and we still have to talk about things like this. So if you're on social media or if you watch the news or, if if you're not living under a rock, you've seen everything that's going on in terms of like protests, in terms of like, the police and, like law enforcement and, whatever you want to call it against the citizens, right? And it's happening both in the States and here in Canada. Thankfully, it's not so bad. Up here, there have been a bunch of peaceful protests. And apparently nothing has really transpired, nothing has really gone on. But, the States can't say that they're as lucky as we are. As you probably know, probably about 2 weeks ago at this point, George Floyd was killed in police custody. If to put it nicely. And obviously there was like a 10-minute video that came out, with the police officer putting his knee on George Floyd's neck. And he said he couldn't breathe. He said that they were going to kill him. He said, a whole bunch of things. And nobody paid any attention to what he was saying, from the fact that he couldn't breathe or anything like that. And, even the people that were recording it, like the onlookers or, whatever you want to call them, the bystanders, they were telling the cops, they were shouting at the cops that, they should check him because like he wasn't moving, this, that, whatever. And eventually, for whatever reason, the cop decided to, after 9 minutes, to finally take his knee off of somebody's neck, which is a vital part of the human body. Like, that's I'm no doctor or anything like that, but I'm pretty sure that's restricting his airway, it's restricting his airflow. There's a bunch of like it's a very important part of your body. It's not just like your leg or your foot, right? Like it's like a tier system, right? Like your head is very important, your chest area is very important, and your neck is in there too. But it's like, if you look at like your arm, it's you can live without it. So anyway, George Floyd unfortunately passes away, and it just sparks this whole like outrage in the States, because obviously everybody saw the video, right? Like everybody saw it. Like I saw it. I didn't even watch the whole video because like I started it, and the moment I knew, or the moment I saw that he was on his neck, and obviously the caption said like this police officer just killed George Floyd, this, that, whatever, and like I already knew what was gonna happen. And to be honest, I thought this was just gonna be another incident where they say it was an accident and the police officer gets put on administrative leave, whatever that means, and they're gonna conduct an investigation, and that was gonna be the end of it. But fortunately, I was wrong, and now there's been protests going on. Like I don't even know how many days. I've seen New York, I've seen Los Angeles, I've seen obviously Minnesota, I think I've seen Atlanta, probably countless other states. It's like I said, it's obviously been happening even up here in Canada. It transcended countries, and the bottom line is that people are tired. There have been countless other incidents of African Americans or people of color coming into contact with police and it not ending well, right? And I really don't understand why, right? It's like you took an oath as a police officer to, I'm not sure the exact wording of it, but it's to like uphold the Constitution and something like that, whatever. But basically you made a promise to try and protect and serve civilians or the greater public, right? That's your job, right? When you were signing up for the job, that was what you agreed to. And from the things that I'm seeing from like when people of color come into contact with police, that oath just goes out the window. And to be honest, I've never had a bad encounter with a police officer. So I can't speak from firsthand experience, but I can speak from seeing what has been going on or what has transpired in the world when people of color come into contact with police officers. And really and truly, like, it's, to me, like, it's an abuse of power, because I just feel like, a cop sees that, they have a gun and they're the gatekeeper, if you want to call it that, of the law, and they have the power to arrest you. They have the power to tell you what to do. They're basically above you, right? For lack of a better term. And I'm not saying that we should defund the police and like we should kill all the police officers and all this and all that. It's like, no, that's not what I'm saying. The thing that I'm basically trying to say is that people of color want to be treated like white people when it comes to being in contact with police officers. They don't want to have their rights violated. They don't want to be thrown around. They don't want to be, treated differently. And, that's a valid reason. Like, this is 2020. We're not talking about 1920. We're not talking about 1820. We're not talking about 1720. Like, why is racism still a thing in 2020? I don't understand. Like, we're out here launching rockets, going to space, like curing diseases, doing all these fascinating things, but racism is still a thing. It's like, that doesn't make any sense to me, like, whatsoever. That just blows my mind. The fact that we're in 2020, look how far we've come as a race, look how far we've come as a species. Like, the thing that I don't understand is that, look how far we've come as a species. Like, we've invented or created electricity, planes, cars, boats, like we build these tall skyscrapers. We've created and built all these things and engineered all these things, but it's still, oh, I'm black and you're white and you're brown and you're yellow and you're this. And it's like, it doesn't, like, I don't understand. I really don't understand why this is still a problem, because really and truly we have come too far for this, right? If you really think about the probability of us making it out, right? Like, think about where the earth was, like, when there was dinosaurs and whatever, right? And if somebody told you that 65 million years later we would have cars and boats and planes and this and all this kind of stuff, it's like, the person would have said, like, you're stupid. Even in 1920, right? In 1920, if you told somebody from 1920 that one day we were gonna have electric cars, they would have been like, yeah, okay. If you told somebody in 1920 that one day we were gonna go to the moon, they would have been like, yeah, okay, if you say so, right? But if you told somebody in, like, I would think that in, because 1920 was a pretty, I'm pretty sure it was a pretty racist time, right? And because, like people of color still didn't have rights, they had to sit at the back of the bus, they had to, there was like different washrooms and like different water fountains, and it was terrible, right? It was very terrible. But I would like to think that if you told a person in 1920 that in 2020, 100 years later, that racism and all that type of stuff would be eradicated, I would like to think that they would have said, that's actually a viable thing. One story that I wanted to touch on from a couple years back was from 2015, and it was from a church shooting committed by Dylan Roof. And if you know the story, you know that he killed 9 African American people in a church, right? Okay. So he kills 9 African American people and he gets away, and he gets arrested about a day later. And at first I thought it was just some made up story, that cops actually bought him Burger King after they arrested him. And upon further research, I found that it was actually a true thing. Cops, he said that he wanted Burger King, and for whatever reason, the cops took it upon themselves to go and get him Burger King after killing 9 African American people in a church in, I think it was like Charleston, like North Carolina, or something like that. And that was like, obviously that was a couple years back. I didn't really think much of it. Maybe he just wanted Burger King. They thought he was hungry or whatever the case was. And then, that was it. So then, fast forward to today, and let's put it like exactly the way it was. He got murdered, right? He gets murdered for allegedly paying for cigarettes with a fake $20 bill, right? So, okay, and you look at the story like that and you're like, oh, okay. But it clicked in my head that Dylan Roof killed 9 African American people. He killed 9 African American people, but he got arrested. But George Floyd didn't kill anybody, didn't cause any physical harm to anybody. He paid. Maybe he knew the money was fake. Maybe he didn't. I don't know. We'll never know, right? But he allegedly paid with a fake or counterfeit $20 bill for cigarettes, and then he gets killed because of that. In what world does that make sense, right? So if you're white and you kill people, you get arrested. If you're black and you don't kill people, you get killed. In what world does that make sense? I just don't understand it, right? And I had this discussion with people, and they don't understand. And they said that, okay, well, they say the same thing about brown people, and they say the same thing about these people, and it's like, that's not the point. You're missing the point. My whole thing about it is that if the roles were reversed, so say George Floyd went and killed 9 white people in a church, I can guarantee he would have had no chance of getting arrested. Because as soon as the police came, or as soon as the police got in contact with him, he would have been dead on the floor. I can tell you that right now. We don't even have to discuss it. I can tell you that right now. And then they're going to say, oh, it was accidental discharge, or he was reaching for a gun, or he was doing this, or my life was in danger. That's the most famous one. Their life was in danger for whatever reason. There's like 40 cops, and their life is in danger. But it's beside the point. Right? I can tell you right now, I can guarantee you that if the roles were reversed, then George Floyd would have gotten murdered by the cops before he even had a chance to exit the vehicle. Because that's what happened. They saw Dylan Roof on like the highway or something like that, and then they apprehended him peacefully, and then they took it upon themselves to get him Burger King. But I just don't understand in what world that makes sense. If you kill people, if you're white and you kill people, then you get arrested and you get Burger King. If you're black and you don't kill people, then you get killed. I just don't understand where that makes sense. To me, that's like, and for all the people saying that there's a few bad apples, I've been seeing that thing going around lately. It's like, you can't say that. That's like Air Canada, right? Like that's like them, they're an airline, right? That's like Air Canada saying, oh yeah, like we have a bunch of pilots, but like there's a small chance that you might not make it to your destination safely. How does that make any sense? Then people aren't going to want to fly Air Canada. People aren't going to want to fly anywhere, because you can't say that when you're working for public safety, right? We give these people like weapons. They have the right to bear arms, right? And they've been through training, and they've been through whatever other types of courses that you have to do. But it's like, you're working for public safety. Wouldn't your first instinct be to settle an altercation peacefully? It's like, that doesn't really make sense to me, right? And people can say, oh, he was resisting, or he could have been on drugs and this and that. And it's like, okay, but if George Floyd was on drugs, that doesn't negate the fact that there were 4 police officers there. 4 police officers were there, and obviously the one, I forgot his name, but he had his knee on George Floyd's neck, and then there was another guy, or another police officer, former police officer, and he was trying to do like crowd control, telling people to stop recording, this, that, whatever, and beside the point. But even if George Floyd was resisting, right? And if you had to, right, I understand that at some point that, you know, maybe he did have to put his knee on his neck to kind of, you know, show George Floyd that, you know, like, this isn't, you know, if you keep resisting, like, I'm gonna keep my knee here, right? And like, I totally understand that, right? But for 9 minutes, nine minutes, you're gonna keep the weight, your full body weight, or almost your full body weight, on a man's neck. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know what to say. It's like, you know, with this whole thing going on, like, I don't know, the world, you know, like, 2020 really is the worst year. Like, you know, Kobe passes away, we have coronavirus, we almost had World War III, Australia was on fire, you know, now we have protests going on everywhere. Like, I don't know, 2020's done. Like, kids are gonna look back, or they're like, this year is gonna be written in the history books, I promise you that. Then kids, you know, 100 years from now are gonna say, yo, you know, like, I wonder how these people survived, you know, 2020. And it's gonna be so crazy. This is gonna be a year that kids in the future learn about, I promise you that. But I mean, you know, I just had to come on here and kind of, you know, give my thoughts, and because it's like, nobody deserves that. No citizen deserves that. No, like, it doesn't matter, black, white, yellow, green, blue. You are a human. You deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And I don't know, like, I don't know. Racism is one of the stupidest things that I've ever experienced or witnessed or anything. It's like, I really don't know what to say. So, you know, on that note, I'm just going to end the video here. You know, as always, thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. It was very much appreciated. All relevant links are down below. You know, try and stay safe out there. Remember to wash your hands. Now, apparently, you know, you can't, if you're a person of color, you know, you gotta chill around the cops. But, you know, if I triggered you with this video, I don't know what to tell you. Feel free to dislike it. Not gonna apologize for it because it's not something I do. And yeah, so that's it. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next one.